the UK's most notorious Islamist Imam faces life in prison. The notorious British Islamist preacher Anjem Choudary has been convicted of terrorism charges in London, marking a significant victory for counter-terrorism efforts in the UK. The 57-year-old British-Pakistani was found guilty of leading the banned terrorist group al-Muhajiroun, being a member of a proscribed organization, and organizing support for such groups. Choudary, who faces life in prison, had long been a controversial figure in the UK, known for his radical views in previous imprisonment for supporting ISIS. The conviction resulted from a complex international investigation of the Five Eyes agencies, involving multiple law enforcement agencies across multiple borders. Dominic Murphy, head of the Metropolitan Police's counter-terrorism command, emphasized the importance of this conviction, stating, quote, "I have no doubt that these convictions have left communities here in London, but also right across the UK and beyond, much safer." Murphy also noted that Chowdhury's quote unquote radicalizing impact has led individuals to conduct terrorist attacks or travel for terrorist purposes. This case highlights the ongoing challenges in combating extremism and the far-reaching consequences of radical ideologies in the modern world. So, we can celebrate this. Anjem Choudary is a extremely corrosive and toxic force in the UK. People from the UK will know who he is. He's been very active for the past 20 years. He first really became very notorious for praising the 9/11 attackers and mobilizing Islamist sympathizers, Islamist groups around the UK for many, many years. And Armin, actually, in the show notes, I included a video where we can watch the footage of his arrest because we covered last year. I wanted to cover the story because last year we talked about when he was arrested. We talked about when he was being charged, and now he has been found guilty. And the sentencing is due to happen on the 30th. So he hasn't been sentenced yet. He is facing a life sentence. I don't know if he will. Hopefully he will, because last time he was convicted and sent to jail for supporting ISIS, he was given, I believe, a 5-year sentence. And then he was let free from prison, like after only serving half of his sentence. I don't understand why. Because that sends like such a soft message. They didn't even make him serve his full sentence last time. So
okay.
Go ahead.
And what are the charges again?
The charges are he was found guilty of leading a banned terrorist group, being a member of a proscribed organization, and encouraging support for proscribed organizations.
Okay, hold on. Let me actually. Oh, never mind.
Because al-Muhajiroun was banned in 2010, and then they were operating this group under like 50 different aliases in the years since.
All right, so ready? This is the video of his arrest?
Yeah, it's only it doesn't go all the way. Like it's not all 10 minutes of this clip. It's only like the first few minutes or so. So we don't have to watch the whole thing.
Okay, good.
Stand back. Hold your hands.
Wait, there's no audio. Hold on. Was there audio for you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go. 1 second. Let me bring it back up.
Stand back. Hold your hands up. Show me your hands. Show me your hands, please. Come over here. Come over.
Anjem, I am arresting you under Section 41 of the Terrorism Act 2000 as I suspect that you are a terrorist and involved in the commission, preparation, and instigation of acts of terrorism.
So that was the main clip.
Okay, that's great. Let me actually bring this one back.
Yes.
So so people might say, how do you respond to this? Because me and you are free speech maximalists, and I have a response to this. I celebrate this arrest and I support it. And I am also a free speech maximalist. So does what I'm saying here not contradict me supporting this arrest? Because he himself did not participate in any act of violence. He was just advocating for these things. As a free speech maximalist, how could I support his arrest?
Well, because this is not purely a matter of free speech. This is a matter of him organizing groups involved in terrorist activities. That's completely
right.
different. It's also about his actions, not just what he's saying.
Right, because me and you as free speech maximalists, that means that we're not free speech absolutists. That means there are certain limitations. Organizing terrorist activity is one of those. Direct threat of violence, direct incitement of violence is one of those limitations. And this guy has gone, in fact, if anything, this guy should have been arrested a long time ago. Like not just based on the limited UK free speech laws, even based on United States free speech laws, which is much higher than the UK, this person should have still been arrested because this person is organizing terrorism and making direct incitements to violence. Obviously, that is not protected under free speech. And this guy should have been arrested ages ago.
Yeah, I mean, this is a
that?
guy who has been linked to influencing multiple people for joining ISIS and multiple terrorist attacks that have actually claimed the lives of British citizens. So the activities of this man are of extreme importance to the security of British citizens. That's not anything that's up for debate. Now, there's many other details about the nature of his charges and what he was found guilty of, but at the end of the day, there was a group that was banned by the United Kingdom for being a terrorist organization, and he continued to work in the furtherance of that group under many different names and aliases. This is beyond just his freedom to say things. This is also about his behaviors, and if you are involved in behaviors and acts that are illegal. It goes far beyond just free expression.
Yeah. Well, this is he going to stay in prison or is he going to go find a way to get out? Like, can you tell us that?
I have no idea. He's going to be sentenced in a few days. He hasn't been sentenced yet. He's facing a life sentence. I hope he receives a life sentence. I still don't understand, and I need to look more into how he got out of jail before serving his full sentence last time. Besides the fact that his sentence was only 5 years, I have concerns. And yeah, so we'll see. It remains to be seen. We have to wait a few more days for him to be sentenced.
Do you think there's a shift happening here in Europe? Like, or are we just being too optimistic? Like in Germany, we saw them just a police raid on the Blue Mosque. You know, the police just just raiding in the mosque from the Shia mosque, which is the headquarters of the Islamic Republic. And that we were very we were very happy with that. In UK, we're saying this guy being finally arrested, and we also see the EU is endorsing pushback laws regarding the refugees, which is a violation of international law, but they're going with it anyways, acknowledging that this is a violation of international law, but we're going to, like, EU is endorsing something that they accept that it's a violation of international law, but they're going to do it anyways because they think that their border security is, like, the migration situation is just getting out of hand. So do you see like a shift happening in Europe, or is this just not that much?
I mean, it seems like it, but I have a hard time discerning how much of it is a genuine shift and how much of it is certain politicians essentially noticing how much, basically trying to retain their own power. I don't know how much of it is, but that's politics. You know, that's baked into the cake.
Yeah, retaining their own power shift because they want to retain. No, yeah, but that's not a contradiction because Europe is tired of this level of migrants and this level of Islam. So to retain your power, you have to reflect all these people complaining. So maybe that's why we're seeing a shift, right?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I firmly believe that it is a first order principle for countries to be able to say yes or no into who enters their country. Completely beyond like this is just like a foundational level of how a country operates, right? Regardless of any like ideology, ethnicity, religion, background, whatever. It is a fundamental aspect of how you rule your country to be able to approve or deny people the ability to enter that country. That shouldn't be so controversial unless you're just
Yeah.
someone that actually believes in open borders, like you're an anarchist or a libertarian or something, or like a hardcore libertarian. So at the end of the day, if these countries, again, you're a little bit more familiar with this than I am, are making the decision that we need to get back to this like first order, and we need to return to this and make sure that we can establish this with as a nature of just frankly running a country. I don't know. I can see why there's an important a big trend towards that.
Yeah. So, by the way, the pushback laws are laws that says that. So, let me actually read this for you. This is maybe something that we want to talk about this on this channel. So, pushback laws are a set of state measures that force refugees and migrants back across a border without considering their individual circumstances or allowing them to apply for asylum. So, this is a violation of international laws, but the EU is going for it, right? And this is huge, and it's not being talked about. This is just happening. Like, this is becoming a bigger deal, because to me this is a huge endorsement of Israel's measures in the West Bank. Because if the EU gets to violate international law because it says, well, the international law does not reflect the reality of the survival of our nation states, I think Israel can now come around and say, like, well, thank you for setting that precedent, because my settlements in the West Bank might be an violation of international laws, but I need to worry about my survival more than adhering to international law. So again, I don't know if people want to have that discussion. Let me know if you're interested in.
Yeah, that's a much bigger. It'd be interesting to talk about that with you later, because I do have concerns about a policy that is that broad.
Yeah, well, I mean,
serious concerns about a policy that is that broad.
I know, but if EU is going for it, it shows that it must make some rational sense that the migrant-friendly EU is going for pushback laws. This must mean that this is a matter of survival. Anyways.
So Jack Johnson, actually, let's address that in a second. Let's go with Gasian's first because it's more relevant. Gasian gave a super chat. Thank you, saying residency/citizenship credit scores.
Well, we already.
Well, there basically are. Yeah, there are countries that do this. Like the Austrian visa system is based off of points. It's a point system.
I mean, even if you don't literally count points, you're still technically based on points. Residency and citizenship is based on certain behavior and values that you have, and certain principles that you agree to, and background check. So yeah, almost every country's citizenship is like that. Even countries that do citizenship by investment or by donation, they still do a background check on you. So you have to, be a good person. Yeah. Anyways, so we already have that.
Anyway, Jack Johnson gave a super chat saying, what care for trans kids is fine, talking to a therapist, changing pronouns. Why do some people support puberty blockers? And what does the research say? If you want to go dissect the research, I would refer you to go look at the CAS review or the CAS report that came out of the United Kingdom. It is the most recent, most comprehensive, systematic review of the literature and research that we have so far. So I am not going to go in a deep dive into why do some people support puberty blockers and what does the research say, because I'm not like an endocrinologist. I'm not going to be able to communicate that as well as others. My understanding is there was a narrative for a long time that, oh, well, puberty blockers are just a way to put a pause on puberty while a child figures out their gender identity, and then puberty can be resumed essentially if they decide a different way, or if they're on puberty blockers and they decide that they do want to medically transition, then they didn't go through, say, an androgenic puberty that's going to radically change their appearance. So then that way it's easier for them to start taking cross-sex hormones and then more easily have the appearance of being the opposite sex. The problem is that there are very severe side effects to these puberty blockers. They are not reversible. That is my understanding. That is my understanding of the literature. I used to be more in favor of these kinds of interventions until I was presented with more evidence. And on the basis of that evidence, I changed my mind. And I don't think that it is a good thing for minors to experience, especially if you consider other down the line side effects that happen, such as if a male is on puberty blockers and then does cross-sex hormones, and then later down the line wants to have bottom surgery to essentially invert the penis. The problem is because that male did not go through a male puberty, his genitalia or her did not have the benefit of the growth of the genitalia that happens during androgenic puberty. So then if that person wants to have a bottom surgery, they actually don't even have enough material from the genitalia to then become the inverted penis. So even from the side of supporting these kinds of affirmation, these kinds of interventions, there are good reasons to maybe not do that kind of thing, especially if you're considering other kinds of interventions that may want to occur later. And there's huge complications that can happen when you don't have enough material for this kind of a surgery. You know what I mean? So it's very complex. In my personal opinion, what kind of care for trans kids is fine. I don't support medicalization for minors in this realm. I think that there should be exploratory forms of therapy that take place. I do not believe in a 100% affirmative model of care, which is kind of what is popularized now, especially in the United States. I think a solely affirmative model is not comprehensive. And I also believe that if a child is presenting with claims of gender dysphoria and discomfort with their body, there are many other aspects of the totality of this child's psyche and psychological health that also need to be considered and need to be addressed aggressively alongside their gender dysphoria, because there's a high correlation of other comorbidities of mental illness. There's a high correlation of histories of sexual trauma that also need to be addressed, that can be a huge cause of gender dysphoria. And this needs to be looked at holistically to be able to understand what might be causing this child to experience these great forms of discomfort. And it's oftentimes much more complex. And we also need to acknowledge the fact that kind of the best cure for gender dysphoria is like adolescence. Like there is a lot of evidence to support that adolescents will outgrow gender dysphoria. So that's why I think it is safer and less harmful for people as a whole to wait until they complete their development to a reasonable degree and can legally make these decisions themselves. That is how I have adjusted my opinion based on the evidence that I have been presented with. Yeah, that's a summary of my opinion on this at this moment.
You know what the
What
problem with what everything you said is, Susie? The issue here is
it's just too common sense.
No, the issue is that you actually care about the children instead of being ideological about it. And people who are ideological about this, either from the left or right, will not be satisfied with any nuanced position, because from one side, people want to be transphobic, And from the other side, people want to say that anything that limits, just having unlimited access to children doing whatever without consent, people doing whatever they want to children. If you come in front of that, and if you actually acknowledge some evidence for how that might be harmful to children, you would be transphobic. But the thing is, whatever your opinion is about this, try not to pick your conclusions based on whether you're trans yourself or whether you're left-leaning or right-leaning. Try to actually see what is the best for the children. I think Susie, even if you disagree with Susie, you can see that she's not looking at this based on her political leaning or based on any biases. She's actually trying to figure out what the answer is based on the evidence at hand. She actually cares about the children rather than virtue signaling from their left or their right to try to belong to a certain community. That's what she's trying to do. She genuinely cares about what is best for them. And she's also not denying the reality of gender dysphoria.
Oh my God, no.
She knows that that's a thing, and people being transgender is a thing. She's just looking at what's the best way to deal with that, not denying the existence of it, right? So
oh my God, yeah. And I think part of my pushback is that the affirmative care model that is popularized in the US today and was popularized in parts of Western Europe, and now Western Europe in many countries is radically changing to correct against it, is that it actually looks at gender dysphoria in a very simplistic way. Versus there are many, many things that can happen within a child's life and within their psyche to give rise to this. And it's just not automatically, oh, they are trans. Like it's so much more complex. And the history of trauma that can happen in a child's life, especially young women, young females, is something that I think has been really poorly handled with the way that the models have evolved. And yeah, this is based off of the evidence I've been presented with. The CAS review was so comprehensive.
It's also weird for me to It's also for me weird to suggest that some because whenever there is a new medical solution to a problem, there are some people who overcorrect, like with anything not trans related. People who try to turn this into, over prescribing something. My father is a heart surgeon. Even when in heart surgery, my father acknowledges that so many patients don't need a heart surgery, and the heart surgeon recommends a heart surgery to them because that's how they make money, right? So why is people, when we see this everywhere else in the medical field, like, are you suggesting that it doesn't happen here while it happens everywhere else? Like, what is so unique about this? Like, this is something that is well known that sometimes happens in the medical field. It's all over the place. So this is not unique. Even if there are good solutions to this, obviously you have to be concerned about it being overused or it being used in places where it wasn't supposed to. It's not ideological. It happens everywhere. Anyways.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So Sid Dave gave another super chat. Oh, and Allied Atheist Alliance and saying, well said. That makes a lot of sense, Susanna. Thank you. And I know there will be people that call me transphobic because of this. I know within myself and my history and the people in my life and how I have saved the lives of transgender people in my personal life. Like, I know it's not true. So you can call me whatever you want. I don't care. Sid Dave said, Islam is a supremacist ideology which claims supernatural validation. Extremist Muslims see non-Muslims as someone who needs to be under their subjugation. Yeah, I don't have a contention there. Sid also said, my view is trans surgery should only be for people born intersex. They are the ones who need it and not physically healthy people, at least not under 21. The issue of intersex is it's very complex. I also don't think that it is appropriate nor appreciated to conflate intersex issues with transgender issues. They are very distinct. The issues that affect the intersex community are very different. It has its own very complex and very abusive history. The things that intersex people have had to go through historically are reprehensible. I do not think intersex people should have to go through surgery. They should not have to go through surgeries at an early age and within infancy to be able to align with a cosmetic belief about what sex is, as long as their body can function as necessary. So again, I don't think it's helpful to conflate these two things.
What's the problem with adults who have gender dysphoria if trans surgery is the right solution for them, which it is for some people? What's the issue with that? We have scientific evidence that for some people who have this gender dysphoria, the best solution for them is trans, and we're talking adults, not children. I don't understand. When we have so much scientific evidence that for some people that's the best answer, why would you want to deny that from them?
Yeah. So the idea, like, if an intersex person in adulthood wants to undergo some procedures to more align with whatever sex they feel more comfortable presenting as, go ahead. That is well within their right. But the history of parents enforcing this upon children, often to their great detriment and the detriment of their health and their well-being and their psychological well-being, like it's like a PTSD playground, the stuff that intersex people have gone through traditionally. It is horrific. But sometimes it can be helpful for maybe someone with Klinefelters that wants to look more masculine and they just have to take some testosterone because their body doesn't really produce it naturally. But in other situations, it is extremely invasive and very physically damaging. Actually, it's not actually physically helpful. There's so much variety within also intersex conditions themselves. I mean, it's a huge area of health and medicine. Angel is saying, once you become 18, you are a legal adult and you can choose the surgery. I believe it's up to you as an individual.
Yes.
Yeah, there are some limits to it. Should you be able to chop off your arm if you want to?
I think you should. I mean, it's not a good analogy because chopping off your arm is not beneficial and trans surgery is. But honestly, I think that as an adult, you should be able to do a surgery to chop off your arm if you want to. Even to that point.
Well, damn.
Like, no, I mean, if you're an adult and you want to do surgery to chop off your arm, you are a freaking adult. You should be able to do that. What the hell?
Did they get to claim disability benefits if they do it voluntarily? I don't know if I'm okay with that.
I mean, you're an adult and it's your freaking body. Like, what the hell? Like, why are you stopping what I want to do to my body? Like, yeah, of course.
There's a dude that wants to look
not
like
that
an
this
alien,
is a good analogy again.
Ears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and somebody saying Hippocratic oath. Here's the thing. Somebody says Hippocratic oath says no. Well, it's good that you're acknowledging that it's an oath and not the law. Okay, this is not law. Okay, it's just something from ancient times that people repeat. Yeah. Somebody's okay. Johnny's saying, Armin, that's insane. No way. Well, that's why I'm not doing it, Johnny. I'm not doing it. But it's more insane for you to tell an adult what they can do with their body. That is more insane. Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do. And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.